Okay, this is hilarious. So we are live. For those of you who are just joining on my Facebook page, we are live at the Artist Co-op doing one of our TAC cons. Unfortunately, our Wi-Fi situation was a mess, so we have started a new live stream today. So just a reminder to those of you who are just joining us, TACCon is a series of conversations that we are cultivating at the Artist Co-op that focus on the theater community and its ever-changing and growing and morphing interests and all the things. So today we are talking to an incredible group of multi-hyphenate entrepreneurs, people who are doing all the things. Yes, multi-hyphenate entrepreneurs. Good, I'm so glad.
I get it.
Entrepreneurs.
I was like, she doesn't know how to say that word.
We made up a new word, Andrew. So I want to go through and introduce some of the people that we're with. As I said before, I wrote your little bios. If I've forgotten anything amazing, please tell me, because you all do so many things. I tried to narrow it down. So this is Andrew Chappelle, who is a tremendous human being. If you don't know Andrew, you're silly. He's everywhere. Andrew is an original cast member of Hamilton. Where
You remembered that one.
I did. It's a big deal. Where he's the swing cover for Burr, Lawrence Phillip, Mulligan Madison, Lafayette Jefferson, and King George, yes?
That's
Any
all
other
of
tracks
them.
that you covered?
That's it.
Burr?
Burr, you said it.
Okay. And he's previously been seen on Broadway in Mamma Mia and the first national of Priscilla Queen of the Desert. He also writes, produces, and stars in his own sketch comedy show called The Sketch Batch, and brings Hamilton to children all over the world in workshops and master classes. Anything else I forgot about all the amazing things that you do?
You know, philanthropist, part-time model on my own Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Expert bed maker.
Turning the
tables
Oh,
web
Turning the
series,
Tables.
yeah. Which
Absolutely.
honestly I think has made me more famous than any of those other things. Really
And
random.
Hamilton?
Yeah, honestly, I try to tell people about Hamilton and they just don't listen. They're like, what?
Like, that show's overrated. Wonderful. So we're so happy to have you here. Matt Rodin, who is also an incredible human being. Matt Rodin has created and produced original content for Playbill, The Smithsonian, Soul Cycle, Dear Evan Hansen, Broadway.com, and is the creator and host of Broadway.com's Red Carpet Challenge, as well as the new live series Urban Campfire, which is at the W Hotel.
Yeah.
And he's also a brilliant performer. If you haven't seen him perform, you should get on it. He's great with the guitar. He's a graduate of the Boston Conservatory, and is a beautiful, beautiful human being. Is there anything else I forgot about you, Matt?
No.
Great. Jane Jourdan, who I haven't ever met until today, and I'm very excited. I don't know.
We are blessed.
We are blessed to have her today. Jane Jourdan is the brains behind Fit for Broadway, which if you haven't checked out Fit for Broadway, go, not right now, but in a little bit, go and check it out. Fit for Broadway is a health and wellness lifestyle blog dedicated to encouraging performers on their journey towards physical and mental wellness, as well as breaking down barriers and demystifying what kind of the Broadway community is and how to be a part of it.
Yes.
Love that description. I'm going to snatch that.
Great, I wrote it down.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that I forgot about? You're also a beautiful performer and singer.
Oh, thank you. Not anymore, but
Hey,
thank you.
it doesn't really go away. It doesn't go away.
No more.
And then this is dear, sweet, wonderful Robert Hartwell, who, get ready, y'all. Get ready for this
He's
bio.
a fraud.
He's a fraud. He's been seen on Broadway in Hello Dolly, Motown the Musical, Cinderella, Nice Work If You Can Get It, and Memphis, as well as the national tours of Motown and Dreamgirls. He is the host of an interior designer on the web series Broadway Quick Change, as well as the founder of the Broadway Collective, which is a traveling multidisciplinary musical theater masterclass, which this year taught students in 22 cities across America, sold out its summer program in New York City, and launched a new online academy for students around the world called Hello Broadway. So he's really tired. He doesn't sleep, and sometimes I need to hang out with him as a friend, which is pretty
the
amazing.
best.
Is there anything else I forgot about all the amazing things you do?
No. That's your, I don't know how
She
you
did the
all
bio.
that.
She
Yeah,
did the bio.
I did the homework.
She did the homework. She was up till 3, guys. But that's called being an entrepreneur. Okay, so clearly we have some wonderful people who are doing lots and lots and lots of different things. And I really wanted to bring everyone together because I feel like we are at this place in our community and in our world where everyone says, if you want to do something, you got to create your own work. Right? There are no bars for entry. The internet is free for now. And YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all of these things have created this really amazing platform for you to create work and do your own thing. And as I was researching all of us have a performance background. Some of us still clearly are performing. Some are performing and doing something else. Actually, all of us are doing want to start this conversation by asking you guys, when was the aha moment that you were allowed to be multiple things? Yes, I feel like in our training, all of us went to conservatory for musical theater or voice. And I feel like there's this one-track mind. Yes, like if you're going to be an actor, then that is the only thing you're allowed to do. And if you don't do just that thing and you don't succeed at it, you are a failure if you do something else. And I'm wondering when you guys had that aha moment of like, I'm allowed to be a multifaceted human who does lots of different things, and it's not a bad thing to promote and create my own material and share it. You got a lot to say. I can see it.
I mean, I always have a lot to say. Just in general. And then put a camera on me, forget it. I don't know, I think it actually started when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When, I did have a lot of energy, and so I was doing taekwondo and baseball and soccer and tennis and the play in the summer. And it just kind of started there.
Yeah.
And I just love dealing with people. I love this and I'm gonna meet some people or see someone I haven't seen in a while. I love that social aspect of life. And so I think that the seed was there. I don't think it was until I started actually not getting what I wanted that started. So in college is when it started. When I wasn't getting cast the way I wanted to get cast, I was like, well, I'm going to turn it. So I started writing my own cabarets. And so I didn't need anybody's permission to write my own cabaret and perform my own cabaret at school. So when they were doing the show, I'd be like, well, I'm doing a cabaret on Saturday. If y'all want to come, I'm going to turn it. And then people came, and I think that's when it started. I started writing. It's the best because you can pick your own songs. Right. Yeah. You write your own intros, and you can direct yourself, or you have your friend direct you. And then once I started doing that, then I started getting movement in other areas. Yeah. It's just like, when you create something, people become attracted to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, similarly, I think I too, as a young person, definitely had that seed planted of being in school and not getting what I wanted, and so having to direct and produce and do lighting design and just sort of get the creativity flowing, because I'm just like an ADHD crazy person. But I think in terms of more recently, when I moved to the city, which really was never my intention to move here, I moved to the city and very quickly realized that if anybody was going to have any idea who I was, it was on me to put myself out there.
I say this all the time. I can't know who you are until you tell me you exist.
Yeah, and I think waiting around for someone to give me an opportunity to do the thing that I wanted to be doing, to me that doesn't make logical sense, because there are so many, like you were saying, there's just so many avenues now that you can put that out there. So I'd come back from doing a regional gig. My first professional gig, got my card, came back and was like, oh my god, what the fuck am I gonna do? And
I'm a star.
And just was like, well, I have to be putting out content. So I think it was more of it became a need. I was like, I can't not do this.
Yeah.
There's no question that there's the BFA in the back of my brain that's like, wait, don't forget about me, come on, I'm a performer. And I think it's because we...
Yeah, he has such a great voice.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, really pingy and forward. No, but there's a level of guilt attached to it, because I think, like you said, in school, it's sort of drilled into your brain that if you can see yourself doing anything else, then you should go do that thing. Which, I understand the sentiment of that, but I kind of call bullshit, because I think you have to do more than one thing.
Yeah.
I feel like if you are, basing your self-worth and your happiness on a single arbitrary outcome, you're
that you have no control over.
That you have no control over. But even in anything in life, if you're basing your soul, your worth on something that's outside of your control and it's one singular thing, you're limiting yourself. Do you know what I mean? I think giving yourself a peak of the mountain is not fair to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's where I'm at.
What about you two?
I think I'm still discovering that. I think more than it being a moment of aha, it's more of trying to produce a quality in my life and exploring other things that are going to help me achieve that quality, which, you know, is joy and happiness. And so I think growing up, I think I had a lot of trouble with that. I remember my coach in cross country wouldn't let me run the meet because I had a competition, a singing competition that conflicted with it, and he was like, you can't run the meet. And so I grew up having to make these choices, and then I think it was just in my adult life making choices that I knew were going to make me most happy, and then being okay with the fact that there were a few different ones happening at the same time. But focus is such a big thing for me, and I think it's hard. I mean, when you're doing other things and when you have a lot of different things on your plate, and when you are an entrepreneur, but you're also doing your side hustle, or you're also like doing freelance stuff, or like you're also just trying to feed your soul in some way.
And feed your body.
And feed your body. So I think it's just this, not necessarily a moment, but just like a continual self-discovery of like what is going to make you happy, and finding those things that are complement to sort of like your staple existence that you have of a job or of a place or something like that.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I like kind of forgot the question. That's beautiful. I kind of forgot the question.
I think the question is okay.
No, I'm just like
She
so
took a
like
long
in
time.
love with everyone's stories. No. I think, you know, it's interesting because I don't feel like in life I wait for people's permission.
No, you do not.
I just kind of go.
I try and I never.
I know.
I never win.
I just kind of go, but I will say that when I was on the national tour of Motown, it was a turning point because I was getting ready to turn 30, and I wanted to get out of the city for a second. Like, I was so grateful to like be working in New York, but my brain and my body just needed a minute outside of the city. And so that national tour like really changed my life. And the director, Charles Randolph Wright, said one day in a note session, he's like, you know, I don't think that any of you are assembled here out on this road, like representing this brand by mistake. He's like, but I think you'll make a grave mistake if you do not use this brand and this road to build something for yourself. And that was
that's such a blessing. That's such a blessing.
So he literally gave everyone in the company permission to build. And you know, he started out in the ensemble of the original Broadway company of Dreamgirls, you know, so he knew what it was like to make pennies, you know, for your art. And he's now, you know, a huge, like, you know, TV film director, and he's also an entrepreneur as well. And to have that permission was like so huge for me. And so I think that's really when I started to like get really serious about building my business. Was that talk was like, okay, that's it.
Is that when you started Broadway Quick Change, or is that when you started Collective?
That was Collective.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had already done your
I
own
feel
show
like
as well. On
it was
a
like the
major
gateway
platform.
drug.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. She was like a little taste.
A little taste.
I love that. So I want to kind of branch off that question because, as I said before, all of us have degrees in theater or in music. Yes, none of us have degrees in film editing, comedy writing, starting a lifestyle blog, which is a photographer and a journalist and a producer
and a web designer.
You didn't go to school to learn how to be a business person. I didn't see an MBA on your resume. So, you know, I think a lot of people are really scared that if you don't have the training in something, you don't have permission to do it. Especially artists and people who grew up taking classes. Yes, like if you didn't go to dance class, you couldn't do the dance, right? You had to learn the basics to be able to do the thing. And I think people are scared to try something new if they don't have the tools to do it. And I feel like I can speak from my own experience. Like, I learned how to be a video editor by going on YouTube and watching YouTube videos. I learned everything from YouTube. I learned how to do makeup on YouTube because that I did not know how to do. And I just wonder, were there things in your brain that you were like, this is going to be a challenge for me to learn how to do this, and I need to find teammates to help me? Or what were some of the tools that enabled you to start your own businesses, to create your own content? What are some of the things that have helped you do that for people who are wanting to start their own thing and maybe looking for tools and help to do that?
I think one of the first things is just doing the ask.
Talk about the ask.
Like, so when our director gave us that talk, we were in Denver, Colorado. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to open up a business. So, okay, great. It's going to be an LLC. So I Googled how to form an LLC, and a YouTube video popped up, and there was this amazing lawyer, and she's like, so you want to make an LLC? And I was like, yeah, I do. So I started like watching her video, and I was like, and then I Googled her, and come to find out, she had an office. She was based in Denver. I was like, what are the odds? Like the number one, like meant to be. So I invited her to the show, and we started like a really great relationship. And like from that, I found out that like my business should not have been an LLC. But it was like what ended up happening. She ended up like getting hooked on my like Broadway quick change videos. So we were trading like legal advice and legal services for. I like came in, painted her office while you know what I mean, and like got her some throw pillows, and she was like, "This is gorgeous."
It's home goods.
It's home goods. It was. I know. But like I think that we're like this thing, and it's like it's just a simple ask, and I feel like so many people want to help, and I feel that once you do start to make some headway, you are so grateful for it that like today one of my friends actually he just emailed me, he's like, I have some business questions for you. I'm like, great, I'm free at 3. You know what I mean? Like people want to help people, you know?
But we're so scared that people are going to think we're failures if we don't have all of the answers before we ask the questions.
Yeah.
At least I will speak from my personal experience that I feel for me, it has been a challenge and a struggle to admit that I don't have all of the answers. And I think maybe potentially there are other people who feel this way, that as artists, we spend so much time trying to have the answer to the question that has been presented to us, that sometimes we are scared to ask for help when we have so wanted to have those answers.
Yeah, I mean, I totally second that, and I say just to anyone who's like starting out, just ask. The worst that can happen is no. I think for me, and I'm sure that we could all speak on this, that I think my most fulfilling and successful endeavors have been accidents and have been places in my life that I didn't have a stress hold on, and that I was just exploring out of pure curiosity, which there's a purity in that isn't tainted with like any sort of stress, any sort of control, anything. And so you're in a flow state that allows you to create and connect and produce in a way that you couldn't for the other things that you're sort of holding so tight. And then like a favorite story that I have is that you know, I'm a big believer in that your life is sort of shaping how it's supposed to. And I worked for my sister the year after I graduated, and like my gap year, essentially I was applying to graduate school for vocal performance, and I was working in her graphic design shop and working part-time, and we were, you know, just having a lot of fun. We're super close, and I had no idea that I was essentially learning like every design and like all the graphic design that I would need to have later. And at the time I was just like cutting and pasting invitations, but like I retained so much of the knowledge that I got from her of just like my eye and the way that I saw things and the way that I put things together. And then when I went to create the blog, I was like, I have all these things these tools that I had no idea that were eventually going to work for me. I thought I was just like wasting time hanging out with my sister. And so I always say, like, don't take for granted those opportunities that you think are maybe not going to ultimately serve your goal that you're working towards. So if it is to be on Broadway, but then you're also working this other job, like don't take that for granted. It's and work in something that at least has a little bit of your interest or that you can be curious about, so that when those tools come back around, like there will be purpose for them, and that you know you're not just wasting your time. And I always encourage younger people, when you're finding part-time jobs, find something that's fulfilling and that is going to complement your verb. So like if you are someone who expresses, or if you are someone who is a creator or a maker, like find something that also is going to complement that verb for you, and that is going to serve that verb in a way that is going to help you and ultimately make you feel fulfilled.
fuck yes. Like to both, but really it's just like I want to second so hard what both of you just expressed, because like it's so valuable to hear that, especially because I think we're all still in that process of like,
oh my god,
because we're all starting new things all the time.
Yes.
And so there's constantly questions. I am a hardcore believer in what you were talking about before, that like the internet, like I hate to say that it has all the answers because it doesn't, but like if you want to learn how to do something, like you can just Google it. And the number of people that are like, well, I don't know how to, I'm like, literally type it in Google.
How do I do this thing?
How do I do that? And I do that all the time. And I get really specific. Like, I mean, how do I move this on a timeline to do this with this thing and this transition? Like, it gets super, super, super specific. And 99% of the time, someone out there has like put some piece of content out about that thing.
Yeah.
The other thing, this is sort of going off of what Robert was saying, was bargaining is the wrong word, but in exchange, bartering. That's the one I'm looking for. Figuring out skills that you do have, that you do have access to, or even if that means learning something new. But figuring out skills that you have, that you can exchange with somebody else for some kind of something. And the worst that can happen is someone will say no. Like, and a lot of people will say no. I mean, that's just part of the deal. And I agree with Jane that like everything is happening exactly the way it's supposed to, and the thing that you're doing now will benefit you 2, 5, 10 years down the line. You have no idea. And the thing that you're not doing right now, like if you don't get something, an opportunity or whatever, there will be something that you're doing in, again, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years that you would never have been able to do if you had done that first thing.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think just be curious. I think that's the big thing. I tell people, I'm like, go dive down your YouTube wormhole. Like find something that gets you energized. You know what I mean? Even if it's like photography or baking. I don't know. Like anything. There's niches, millions and millions and millions. Nothing is too niche.
That's a shout.
Nothing is too niche.
Nothing is too niche. Nothing is too niche now. I mean, we're at a point where that's what the internet did. You know, people can connect with communities of people that have the same interests. So dive down the YouTube wormhole, get curious, and just like start exploring, because that's when like the pure shit comes out.
And cultivate your worldview by doing this. What do you care about?
Well, that's
the
like
internet to help you figure
yeah, that's
out
number one. I mean, you can't do anything without knowing what you believe in and why you're doing what you're doing and like what you care about. I mean, that's to me baseline. Like if you don't have a sense of that and you're going for, well, I want to be a photographer, well, I want to be this, well, I want to run this, and you have no sense of why you're doing any of those things, then it will just continue to spin and spiral. There's no end to that.
Oh. What was it about? Like, oh, we didn't go to school, so like, how am I allowed to do this?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that like, school is great, but school, I've spent a lot of my professional career stripping away bullshit that was put on me in school.
Amen.
And not to mention the cost, the actual physical money cost of it. And it hit me a long time ago. I remember I was teaching my first class. I was like 22. I was doing Mamma Mia, and they were like, "Have you ever taught a class before?" And I was like, never taught. And then I was like, you're either gonna drown teaching these kids, or why are they here? Oh, they're here to take a class with me, so I must have something to teach them, right? And that's when I was like, oh. You have something to offer. Just because you didn't go to Juilliard for ballet or you didn't do this doesn't mean you can't teach a dance class. Or just because like I didn't go to school for writing doesn't mean I can't write comedy.
Right.
I was actually talking to Lynn about In the Heights a long time ago, and I was just like, why, how, and he was just like, well, that's what I knew about, and I was like, oh, you wrote about something that you knew about. I know about something, and then, and then I was talking to my manager, and I was just like, this life event happened to me, and she's like, oh, that's your show, and so I was like, oh, I can write that, that's easy, and then sat at the computer, and it was like, 40 pages done, and then came the hard part of needing to ask for help, Because you're like, okay, I wrote something, but like, what's the formula? What are the rules? So that I know I'm breaking the rules before I broke the rule. Like, there's always a lot of work to be put in, after the initial inspiring moment.
Well, that's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
The fun part is like the doing of the first thing. You're like, oh, this is fun, and then it gets like hard.
Then it gets hard and frustrating, and then you got to put it down and walk away.
Robert's like, I need a nap.
Yeah, there's sometimes you need a break, and I think that's actually the gold in what we do is that when you have 6 projects, you can put one down that needs a break to go and work on this thing. It's like, if I'm frustrated, then I just go to work, and then mindlessly do Hamilton, and then
that's a great gig.
And then after a week of doing the show or whatever, then it's been 4 years, so it's like I'm not like, okay, what wing am I going in now? You don't have to think about that anymore.
But they don't talk about that in school. Do you know what I mean?
Tonight you're not gonna know what comes
God.
But they don't talk about the fact that like when you're doing a job like that 8 times a week, like
it's your job.
It's your job. It becomes your job, and then what you're doing in your outside time becomes like your work.
Well, because I somebody said this to me, but they're like, that's already on your resume. Like
What's next?
You keep going to work doesn't mean it's like on your resume every night. It's like, that's right. So I need to figure something else out.
And I think that's the same for any job, right? Like, okay, so you started this thing, so you do Red Carpet Challenge. What's next?
Yeah.
What else can you do? What else can fulfill you? So I kind of want to talk specifically to you for 1 second, but I have a feeling all of you are going to have kind of thoughts about this. I talk a lot about seizing mutually beneficial relationships. So this idea that, we talked about, how can you barter? What is something that you have that somebody else doesn't have? And if you come together, you can create something bigger and better than you ever thought. And social media is really all about mutually beneficial relationships. Who can I tag in this thing that'll tag me in this thing that'll allow these people who I've never met before to see the thing that I'm creating? And you, specifically with Broadway Collective, you work with a lot of fellow artists, a lot of other teachers who have done different things than you have, or different types of creatives, and you bring them all in. And by doing that, you're bringing in kind of all of these other humans, and the roots grow out, and the tree goes tall, and the business can grow. So I kind of want to talk about how you approach someone and ask them to be a part of the thing that you're creating. Interestingly enough, I feel like I've worked on teams with most of you. I feel like we've created some things together, guys. But I wonder, specifically when you started the collective and you started the national tour and you realized you had to get people to come and travel with you and teach with you, and you had to set a budget and you had to get them excited about teaching. What was that process for you? How do you get people on your team? How do you woo people into your world?
It's actually my least favorite part.
Great.
It's the thing actually that I hate the most. Like, it's so uncomfortable.
Why?
Because one, it's like it's a coming out. You know what I mean? It's like you're really saying, like, for instance, last year we had our first summer program, and
which sold out this year in like a day.
It's one thing to, okay, wow, we've worked together, we've done a show together. That's like not a very hard ask, But the summer program, I tell our kids, it's like you're not working with Broadway performers, but you're working with the people that hire us. So like that is like a whole nother like anxiety-inducing thing for me to reach out to a Tony Award-winning director or choreographer and say, hey, would you come and teach my kids, and also like, hey, here's a tax form because you're going to be on my payroll, So, but it's like, it's a very real thing, So I've learned to just keep it very simple and make sure that like on my website is all of our information, which the information is much more testimonial based. So that they can see the impact of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then money conversations I hate having. Like, it's not a thing. So...
Were you ever taught about money in school? Were any of you ever taught about business or money or finances in college?
No, but I will say it's starting to change.
Great.
Oh, really? Wow.
Well, they have like a moment where they're basically like, what's your life going to cost when you get to New York?
You're blessed to have that, because I did not have that.
So you kind of have a little paper that's like, well, I need this money. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I know how much I need now.
Yeah. But I think when you aren't taught about it, it does make it very uncomfortable to try to ask someone and create a rate. I know I still have issues when someone says, okay, what's your rate?
Oh yeah.
Well, I think the crazy thing about a rate is, if you have a rate and someone isn't willing to give you the rate, you have to be willing to say no and not have whatever the money is that they're offering you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gag with the rates.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much power in the no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's so much power in the no, and I feel like that is why we're not going to move forward as artists and really get what we should be getting, like for real, because people are just going to constantly, until actors start saying no to producers. You know, that was like we talk about this all the time. That was a big turning point for me. I was sitting in a dressing room beside a guy with like 2 kids and a wife, and my couple of Broadway shows and his 9,000 Broadway shows, and I was like, we make the same amount of money, and that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's not, I don't know how I'm surviving on this. How are you doing this? And like raising children in New York. You know?
I think that in particular is why you need to be an entrepreneur, because that is an employee mindset of like, this person's giving me this money, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, so then how do I get more money? Because I can't like keep asking these people up here for more money.
And everybody who decides to be an actor is their own business person.
Mm-hmm.
They have their LLC, as it were, their invisible LLC. And so you are not an employee as an entrepreneur. You are not an employee. There is not a steady paycheck coming. So everyone who sets out and moves here to become an actor or an artist is signing up to be an entrepreneur. And they have to have that mindset of, I'm not an employee of anybody but myself. And I think that's a very tricky place to be, and still say no, and still know your worth and ask for it. I think that's really hard. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. The two of you specifically talk a lot. For those of you who don't know, Matt was just recently interviewed for Jane's, for Fit for Broadway.
She ain't fit and she ain't Broadway, but I'll be on the blog.
You are both those things!
Enough. No, I do want to talk about that for 1 second, really fast. I just recently went to a panel discussion where everyone spent the entire time talking about how untalented they were, and how they shouldn't be there. And it was so interesting to watch it. It was so interesting to watch this kind of like circle jerk of insecurity, in all honesty. And I just so appreciate that the people on this panel own up and honor the fact that they worked really hard to get what they want. And I think I would hope that everyone out there, please stop talking about what you don't deserve, because you deserve to be here and you're doing the work, and I'm over it. Okay. Right, you deserve to be here. So, on that note, the two of you talk a lot about authenticity. And how the most attractive thing right now is vulnerability and authenticity, and how to cultivate what that means, and then how to share it publicly. Which, you know, I talk about this a lot too. The thing I'm looking for in the room when someone comes in is, who are you? What do you like? What do you like to taste? What do you like to wear? Who are you? Show me that thing. And so my question for you guys is, how have you taken the time? What steps have you taken to kind of cultivate your authenticity? And then how do you apply that to your business? And do you ever have moments where you're like, that was not authentic, that was gross, and how do you curb those moments?
There was a turning point for me a couple years ago, right at the end of 2016, where I had to make a shift because, like I was talking about earlier, I was going for specific goal points, arbitrary sort of not like just things, rather than like what I want to do in this life, the kind of impact I want to make. And when I shifted my mentality to thinking about the why, which is something I talk about all the time because I'm fucking obsessed.
Simon Sinek, yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was a game changer for me. And if you're not familiar, it's the concept that it's not focusing on the what's and the how's. It's focusing on your why. And it starts with, I mean, like you said, like looking at what kind of music do you like, what kind of shows are you into, what TV do you watch, what food do you like, and then going one step further and asking, you know, what is it about those things that you enjoy so much. And when you start to dig, and it really is work. Like, it seems, I think sometimes like that feels stupid to like sit down and take the time to do that. But like that work is so valuable and so important because then when you walk in a room or you're posting on the internet or whatever you're making or when you're going for the ask, you're able to lead with what you believe rather than look at all the things I've accomplished. You want to work with me. This is who I am and this is what I believe, and if we're aligned, I think we could be a good match for each other. 100% now, there are moments where I check in every day, and every single thing I do, I'm like, does this align with my why? Does it not? And sometimes it does not. And there are things in my life right now, in this very moment, that I know are not connected to like the kind of work that I want to be doing and the kind of impact I want to have. But I think, I don't remember what the exact question was because now I'm just tangent.
Just keep going.
I'm so. If you are putting out in the world an image of yourself that you think needs to be like out there, that you want, like you're catering you for somebody else's desires, then the opportunities that are going to come to you are not going to be aligned with who you are. If you're able to figure out who you truly are and what you truly believe, and you put that out in the world, then the opportunities that will come back to you are going to be aligned with that.
That's it.
So
that's it.
And I think that was such a big like revelation for me because so many people that I know, let's just use auditioning as an example.
I was about to take it there too.
When you walk in a room, right, and you're like, oh well, I want to make sure I'm wearing the right clothes. You put a video about this last week.
I did.
Content
I created. Okay.
And you're picking your song and you're picking your clothes and you're like trying to hold yourself in a certain way to appease the people behind the table. They're not getting you.
Right.
They're seeing this version of you that you've created, and I think that translates to like life. We're constantly trying to like be things, and I think a lot of that's from training too, right? Because at school we are trained to go in a room and you have to do whatever you can do to get that job, and we are dying for approval. We're dying for someone to give us permission to do the thing that we want to do, and so we think we have to form ourselves to whatever they want, when really the opportunities that you're going to ultimately be so grateful for and are going to be like so much more fruitful and so much more fulfilling are the ones that are going to be aligned with like who you are as a human being. And so when you are able to figure out what it is that you care about, what it is that you believe, what your why, and you lead with that in the world, in everything that you do, that is what comes back to you. And it's just, I don't know, like to me that's like a way more fruitful life, to be able to be doing things that are like, I don't know, because otherwise you're just faking it.
Well, and this is the thing. There's a difference between being a personality or sharing a personality and sharing your personhood. These are two different ideas.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is when you find the personhood and you know how to authentically share that thing, then you attract the things that you want to be working with.
And I know you're not a big fan of the word authentic. And I get it, but I think breaking it down ultimately, it's just being honest. It's just honesty. It's just like you don't have to you are allowed to like be sad. You are allowed to also celebrate yourself. And it just comes back to social media. That's where my brain is going. But constantly, I feel like people feel the need to project some version of themselves. Like I'm always happy or I'm always this, and like you can share the honest truth. And the people that are going to unfollow you, you don't want following you anyways. And the people that need to find you will find you. And
that's not just on the internet, that's in real life.
That's in real life. And I think
I have unfollowed several people in my life.
Yeah, and that's hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like having relationships that you've had for a long time or you formed in college that you realize like, oh wait, this is like not fun and you don't make me feel good about myself.
Right.
And we don't, like, it's hard to break away from those things that we've come to understand. And the other big piece, and then I'll let you talk.
I was like, let's go to Jane too.
Is I think what's really, really scary for a lot of people is breaking away from the you that you've come to understand.
Yes.
So, at 20, yeah, I mean, it's real, because, like, I'm 20, I'm 25, and
You're just 25 and all that?
I'm 25, and you know, and in the last couple of years.
The last couple of years.
Now listen. Listen. In the last couple of years, as I've started to really lean into my gag and lean into who I truly am and like just my honest, most basic, true self, it's terrifying because there's this person that again you've come to believe is one thing. You've come to believe that you are something, some way, and as soon as you start to pull away from that thing, it's like Moana, right? Like you have to get past the shore, you have to get past the reef to like see the world. But it's like fucking terrifying. There's so much like resistance in pulling away from the you that you've come to know that like, but that's like it's like so vital to be able to like reinvent yourself and not feel beholden to like this person that you know, that your family knows.
And honoring that you're not a failure if you decide you want to try something different with your life. I think so many people get stuck in that mentality of, I am a failure if I don't do the thing I set out to do when I was 16 years old.
And they're worried about what their friends are going to think. They're a lot of times worried about what their parents are going to think.
Sure.
That's like a really big one, is that people feel like, oh, but like my mom like loves watching me perform, like, you know what I mean? Like people, it's true. Like people, like,
my parents would love to watch you make money.
My parents paid for college. My parents paid for my BFA. Like, how can I not do this thing that they put off? Like, and I get it, but you're just like, again, you're like limiting yourself.
Should try though.
You gotta try.
Yeah.
Oh. What about you?
Sorry about that.
Second all that. No. Yeah, I think for me, and I'm kind of riffing on the question that you had told me earlier about hype casting. But I think that when I was auditioning, I was walking into a room and I was one of 10 brunettes who looked exactly like, who had the exact resume as me, and I didn't feel unique. And that's something that I know within my being, that I have to feel unique to feel like I can express and to feel like I can connect. And so I think it was just like starting the blog came from that authentic desire to just sort of feel unique and express in a way that I felt like my voice was being heard. And I talk a lot about this theme of like being seen and being heard and like how terrifying that is. But that was a way that I was able to be seen and be heard in a way that felt really comfortable and that felt like, I think that was like a big shift for me when I felt like I could kind of break away from just like finding my validation in that space and then going elsewhere.
Can I make one more point, and then I promise I'll shut up. Anybody who's known in any world, in any sort of industry, I'll give you the example of like Bernadette Peters, Patti LuPone, people that people have really admire. They don't sound like anybody else.
Right.
They are so uniquely themselves that is what makes them an asset. That is what makes them like so special. And so I'm similar to what you said. It's like you got to figure out your gag. You got to figure out what your thing is, and mostly it's just like being truthful, being honest.
And I want to parlay that onto a question for you really fast, because I really want to talk about this. I feel like you have done an incredible job of making a version of yourself, a truthful version of yourself, sometimes heightened, really, really, really popular. It is, you are an entity yourself. And I want to talk about when you decided that it was okay to do that. When you were allowed to be yourself and share of yourself, which is very vulnerable and scary, but you do it in such a great way.
It is a little exhausting.
And when it became attractive to other people. Yeah, it is
Somebody,
really exhausting.
I was FaceTime with a friend yesterday before the show, and she was like, "You haven't posted in a while." I said, "Girl, I am tired. I don't have the time to be posting anything on this phone." But I actually have a first-hand account of what you said. When you post authentically yourself, how the things come to you. It always surprises me, I have to say, because you don't know who follows you.
Sure.
You don't know.
I have to say, on the daily, I receive information about who's following me. I said, huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Or like people's kids follow you.
Mm-hmm.
I got a job. I went in for this thing, and I went in and I had to call back, and the director goes, my daughter follows you. And I said, oh my goodness. So I've been auditioning for you for now 2 years, and I didn't know it. You know?
But you have.
But then the job that I got was correct for who I am. Like, you know, of course I'm an actor, and, you know, you can suspend reality and whatnot, but a lot of times when it's on camera, you can't really fake a lot of things. You know, it's like you're just innately yourself. In terms of my persona or whatever, we all have different ways that we are with people in the world.
Yes.
You know, you're different with your mom than you are with your coworkers. You're different with your boyfriend than you are, you know, with the person on the street, whatever. And it's just, you're always yourself. You're just, sometimes you're a little funnier, or sometimes you're a little bit more serious. And so I just chose the part of myself that's a little bit more funny. And my friend Juan has this theory about social media, how basically up until the 90s, and this is, I'm not saying that I'm a celebrity or anyone here is a celebrity, but it's the idea of celebrity. We only saw stars in the movies and on the red carpet. We never saw them in their house. We never saw them on the street. And then all of a sudden, social media gave us the access to see, like, what is Kim Kardashian eating for lunch?
And we all care.
And we all, for some reason, care. And so I think the trap with Instagram is people, or
I don't care what Kim Kardashian is eating for lunch.
I want to know all about the
9 billion
lipsticks. I want to know
followers.
everything. But I think sometimes a trap with people's Instagrams and their social media is they actually are going the opposite direction of what it's intended for. I think it's intended to like give people a window into your everyday life because you use it every day.
Yeah.
And people are like, I'm gonna be like be in Dubai every day. And you're like, I'm not in Dubai every day. Today I'm at the artist co-op. And that while you might not think it's interesting to yourself, 60,000 people do think that's interesting.
Right.
And if 200 of those people don't think it's interesting, then they'll unfollow you, and you'll get 200 people that think that's interesting,
Right.
and then those are your people.
Right.
And then those are the people that are going to then buy a ticket to your class, and then go and audition for your thing, because those are the people that want to know about what you're doing, and then you can kind of run your business through that. So that's what I did.
So we're about to wrap up our time, and I do this thing when I meet with people. Anyone who's worked with me has probably done this, where I like to talk about your flies and your fails. What has happened? I just kind of want to leave with this question. Since everyone here, like Matt said, is still on this journey of figuring out where they're going to be, if you had asked me 5 years ago if this is where I was going to be, I would have laughed in your face and said, ha ha ha, hilarious.
Yep.
But here I am, and I'm really proud to be here, but who knows where I'll be in 5 years. And I think that's a beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur. But I think a lot of times on our journey towards happiness, whatever that is, we don't take the time to celebrate our successes or take the time to honor our failures and what they've given us. So I really like to encourage people to do that as often as they can. And so I kind of want to go down the line and talk about this past year, which went by very quickly for me. I don't know about you guys, but like it was New Year's Eve 2017 yesterday. What are some of the things? What is your biggest fly and your biggest fail, and what have you learned from them, and what have they given to your life? You're welcome. Just like a casual question.
I was looking. You know how when you go through your email and you're like looking for an email and you'll just type something in. I actually found one by accident this morning. I was looking for someone. I typed a name in and I read it was like, this is a huge career milestone, and I was like, what was the career milestone? Because we go so fast, I don't know what the fuck is going on, and so I had to click the email because I was like, and so then I scrolled and I was like, oh my god, I joined SAG last year, which was like something I was like, okay, like I guess for people who've been SAG forever, it's like not a big deal, but for me it was like a thing, and I also created my own LLC, and then the fail.
You walked out of We the People, honey. And you did that. No, you had a fancy lawyer. I went to We the People, which is a great resource.
We the People?
We the People on 14th Street. If you need to start an LLC, honey, it's cheap and amazing.
I got mine from a friend. You just talk to people. I don't know what my fail is. I mean, I auditioned tirelessly. I would say every audition I didn't get was a fail, but somehow it helped me become a beautiful person. You know, without those jobs, I learned so much.
I'm still standing.
Yeah.
I met Jason Mraz.
Yes.
Oh, was he making a pie?
No, he wasn't. You know, I think that was something that I had wanted for a really long time in my life, and I had always known that it was going to happen. I didn't know how or what or why.
Like truly, we talked about it like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
that it was going to happen.
Yeah, I knew. I've known that it was going to happen. I manifested the fuck out of that shit, and it's real. No, and it really, and I know it's like funny, but it really is a true thing. That like my brother called me the day after it happened, or the day that I found out that I was going to do it. My brother goes, he's like, so like you've been like talking, like you've been like saying you're going to meet him. Like, did you know? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, did you like know that you were going to meet him? And I was like, well, He's like, were you like just like saying that to just like to bring that in? And I was like, yeah. And it worked. And I, again, like didn't know how or what or why. And it came at a point where I was really, really frustrated with what I was doing, and I felt really limited and just like, I don't know, just like completely out of sync with where I wanted to be. And it came in because I was being truthful and honest, and like, I don't know. That to me, it was a really big accomplishment, and it exceeded anything I could have ever possibly expected, because I didn't have any expectations. I didn't have any sort of like hold on what it was going to be or how it was going to happen, and it just, I mean, my mind was, I'm still shaking from the whole thing. I'm still like overflowing. And in terms of a failure, man, there's just like so many things. I'm the type of person who I love to start things, but I don't like to finish them. And there are countless projects, that I've begun and then decided, not what I want to be doing right now. And I don't know if I count those as failures. I don't really know if I count anything as a failure, because if you're able to learn something from the experience of falling on your face, then to me that's a win. Like, to me that's ultimately that's a success.
It's actually the greatest success.
That I think so.
Yeah.
So that mentality shift that's a big one too. To be able to be like, oh, I don't. Okay, well, not this. All right, well, on to the next thing. Like, it doesn't really matter,
In the last year, I think I really tackled like all platforms at the same time. So I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. We launched a book club. We launched a run club. We launched our workshops at an undergraduate level. I made content like a crazy person for social media.
Which
she says we like it's like a full team of people. It's like literally
That's what you're
Jane.
supposed to say.
It's literally herself.
Well, you are
I was wondering. I was like,
I
wow.
want you to celebrate, girl.
We
That's
did
you.
that.
That's you.
Yeah.
I've headed all of that. I have had help. Collectively, we're all helping
Collectively.
to do this. But through all of that, I think the hardest thing was creating content for social media. I don't like social media, which is like a really bizarre thing that I work and create content for social media. And I went through a really bad depression last year, and I think my success was not giving up, and just like pushing through and like realizing that like there was a lot of success and that caused a lot of sort of confusion, but with that comes a lot of clarity and helps you realign with what you're really supposed to be doing. So I think that I did everything, and then that resulted in something that gave me clarity for now moving forward, which is a blessing. It's good.
Oh, like I can't even with you. Okay, I think I was most proud of leaving Dolly last.
The Tony Award-winning revival of Hello,
the
Dolly.
Tony Award-winning revival. It was. I remember asking one of my friends who I really admire in the business, and we went out to lunch, and I said, "Hey, I am really thinking that I want to, go full time into my business." And he said, "Like, why would you do that?" you know, and I was like, okay, this is why I have to do this thing, you know? And I think sometimes you have to be like literally mad to be an entrepreneur, you know? And what I had to realize was like, oh wow, that's totally fine that he's just not comfortable with that, you know? And that's like totally okay. So if you're comfortable with being uncomfortable and like content creating at 4 a.m. because like your we is literally you and a latte, like for real, just like, fuck, still single.
Extra hot, 6 pump chai, no water.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know? Then I think like, wow, you should like, oh I know, diabetes.
Diabetes.
But that's not funny. So that was like I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Facebook. But that was the thing that I was actually most proud of. But what like was when you take those leaps, there are going to be people that see you, and for some reason, like our words have such power. And I remember I was going into the theater actually for my final show, and Jerry Zaks was like running out of the theater. Oh, honey, and I said, oh my gosh. I said, yeah. He goes, I'm so proud of you. He said, you're teaching. He goes, you are doing God's work, and I'm so proud of you. And I was like, I don't even have to do the show today. Like, I should just sit in the audience and, you know. But that was, like, such a huge thing to know that, like, he and also Warren were just, like, so supportive of, like, go after this thing. The biggest, I guess, failure thing that I would say is honestly, like, stepping into the ownership of being a boss, you know, and I feel that we all like do this like polite thing because we're actors and we want to be kind and we want to be liked and we want to be loved, but like you have a business to run, you know, and that has been the hardest thing for me. I've definitely like held on to team members or software or, you know, just, I'm serious, like, there's a lot of things that you just, like, hold on to because you're comfortable, and you're comfortable, or hashtag you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Again, like, I don't think that Amazon is where Amazon is because I'm not saying, like, go out there and just, like, ha, but, like, at the same time, like, you have a business to run, you know, and this friend over here has, like, been so instrumental in me, you know, stepping into that, and by doing that, it's like really, really revolutionized our business, and it's helping people more because you're just being honest with what it is that you need.
I'm going to close by saying my flying fail, because I think it's important that we all be vulnerable and share of ourselves. I think my fail this year has been I've become so dedicated to the work that I'm doing and sharing with other people that sometimes I forget to honor my personal relationships. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this problem where they become so invested in their job and their work that they don't allow themselves to like have friend dates and be a good wife and partner. And so I think that has been something that I really, really, really need to work on moving forward, and something I think a lot of entrepreneurs and artists I've talked to have that issue where they become so hyper-focused on the gag that they lose the gaggle in the meantime. Ooh, that's going on a shirt. Dig into the gag, don't lose the gaggle. And then I think my biggest win this year has been I set a goal that I was going to be able to go to an industry event or party and not feel like I had to tell everyone why I was there. I didn't want to feel like a fraud anymore. And my goal by 2018 was to go to an opening of a show and not have to tell people why I was there. Not be someone's date, but be there for me. And I'm going to the Frozen opening tonight. And
yes, you are.
I'm ready to not have to explain to anybody why the hell I'm there.
Yay.
So that's kind of awesome. Yeah?
You're going to see Frozen.
I'm going to see Frozen. I'm going to see Frozen.
You know what I mean? Like, up right there.
Let it go. So thank you guys so much for being here. We so appreciate you guys coming to the Artist Co-op. We do TACCon every month, so come back to the Artist Co-op Facebook page to see who we're talking to next month. If you liked this conversation, please, please, please feel free to share it. It will be live on Facebook forever in the archives.
Wow.
So I know, amazing. It will not die.
I love that.
So please please feel free to share and like the Artist Co-op Facebook page for more of these. And please, all of these incredible humans are sharing of themselves on social media. All of those links will be live on this in about a minute because this was a new experience. So please go follow them, share them, follow their stories. And if any of them are doing something you're interested in, please feel free to tell others, because when we share of ourselves and we share other people, we create a community that is unfucking stoppable. Thank you so much, guys.